Welcome back to Unedited Edits. My name is Brandon, or Wampus, or Poos, or whatever you want to call me. First off, yes, I lied. I lied. In the last version that we did these, I said I was moving it to my Ko-Fi page. I don't know if it should live on this channel, and I wasn't wrong about that. I still don't think this series should live on this channel as like a published video. So I think eventually what I'll do is once I'm able to get members for YouTube, I'll make this series like a member only series. So second off, yes, I know my shirt is wrinkled. It is laundry day. I'm sorry. It is what it is. Now, if you're new to this series, Unedited Edits is where we do a breakdown of something recently that I've edited, and we try to leave it a little more raw and uncut so that you as a viewer get a better appreciation of the workflow for a video. And today's video is gonna be a breakdown of an intro to Around the Bar. Now, Around the Bar is a new podcast that Hitch from Optic Gaming is producing. I was lucky enough to become a part of the team, and so I'm helping him put it together. And one of my responsibilities was to come up with and produce an intro that would go at the beginning of each show. So yeah, it was a really fun project. If you continue to enjoy this series, please let me know in the comments. As long as somebody is still finding some use out of the Unedited Edit series, I'm more than happy to continue to do them. But yeah, let's go ahead and hop into the breakdown. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to start with the actual raw recordings and kind of talk through my workflow of figuring out and piecing together this video. And then on the back half of this video, what I'll do is I'll actually hop into DaVinci and maybe go through a few nodes and specific settings that I use to create some of those effects. But what you're looking at right now is the actual intro in itself. So there's an opening clip, and then what happens is a shot glass is gonna slide on screen, flip up off screen, and then we go through this hyperlapse montage into some visuals of the original Around the Bar videos, and then we go into some IRL shots of Hitch piecing together some cocktails with a cool little mass transition right there, and then into the logo reveal. So the intro itself isn't very long, but just doing some motion graphics and stuff like that was a couple day process. So let's go ahead and hop into the actual workflow. All right, so before I do any big project, if I am disciplined and motivated enough, I'll start with just some mood boarding, art boarding, just coming up with some ideas and inspiration. And what you're looking at right now is not only the brand guidelines for Around the Bar, but also some images that I thought were kind of cool and maybe fit the general feel and direction of what I wanted to go in. And then I also use this, I think it's an advertisement for a bar, like an actual bar. I think I was looking up bar promotional videos, ads. I found that. I thought it was pretty cool. So took some inspiration from that. And I think the images that I use, I got off of Behance. I don't think I just Googled like cool images. I think I was looking around Behance for a little bit and just kind of pulling and grabbing from things I thought that were cool. But now we're in DaVinci. So I kind of have an idea of, at this point, I kind of have an idea of some of the visuals that I might want to incorporate into the video. But before we can get there, you got to start with just the song and just the footage. So what I'm doing right now is I'm chopping up the opening clip and making sure it syncs properly. And then we have our opening track. We have I guess you could call it the Around the Bar theme song at this point. It's a song by Monica, and I believe Hitch has used music from Monica in the past, so it was very fitting for him to bring back that music into this new venture that he's doing. So, and all I'm doing right here is I'm just trying to get a feel for the song and the pacing. So I'm trying to figure out, okay, where do I actually want to transition into the intro itself from the song? And then once I have that lined out, I can kind of figure out how I want to move into the actual intro animation. Brought in my artboards into DaVinci so that I can look at them when I need to. And the next thing that I'm going to do actually is I'm going to start splitting apart the word mark, or I guess you could say the logo mark for Around the Bar. I did have individual assets for like just the shot class logo, but I knew that at the end, what I wanted to do is have some very minimalist some minimalist animation of the full around the bar mark. So what I'm doing is I'm splitting up each of the different fonts and the shot glass, along with like the shot glass little clink thing. And I feel like there is probably an easier way to do this in DaVinci, but when I'm doing stuff like this, like I already know that I'm going to be attempting to do some new things in the animation and in the intro, and I'm probably gonna have to spend time learning those things. So I'm just doing what I know. So I brought it into Adobe Illustrator, and then I copy and paste the separate things into Photoshop. I keep the format, I keep the resolution the same in the Photoshop file, and then I export some PNGs, and that's it. Like I said, there's probably a quick way to do it in DaVinci. I don't know how to do it at the moment, so this is what I did, and it got the job done. So yeah, like I've said this a few times in unedited edits, but I think one of the most time-consuming processes or time-consuming parts of doing any video project is just getting all of the things that you need, whether that's B-roll, music, sound effects, graphic assets. Like if you're producing a video with a company that has like lower thirds and it's got specific transitions, like just getting all of that stuff set up ends up taking a good amount of time. And it's normally really useful to do that at the beginning of the project, because there's nothing worse when you're like neck deep in something and you realize like, dang, I got to go back and I got to download like just a bunch of other stuff. So I'm doing this at the beginning because I know I'm probably going to have to do it at the end. And worst case scenario, if I don't use it now, like this is going to be a group that I'm continuing to work on. So I'll just have it for later. So I have that all exported now, bringing it into DaVinci, and then I believe the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt the shot glass animation. And yeah, we're cutting forward just a little bit. There's going to be a couple times where I cut forward, one because I forgot to render out, or excuse me, not render, forgot to record, be working on it, and then I actually lose a lot of the recordings because my computer has been blue screening recently. I don't know why. It scares me. It makes me very nervous. But yeah, it has. So I'll be like, recording myself editing and it blue screens, which is super fun. So what you're looking at right now is me building out this motion line that the shot glass ends up sliding on into frame. And the way I go about doing this is actually through following a tutorial that Peach put out, where he demonstrates how to get like an actual tail on your polygon lines, and it's through using the bitmap node. And it's a pretty straightforward tutorial to follow, but the effect that you get when you use this tutorial is that things just look like they're a little more hand-drawn. Sometimes when you're working in DaVinci or you're just starting to make some things, like it looks very Microsoft Paint. Like it doesn't look like it should be a part of the scene that you're working on. So by adding in these different motion blur effects, like it kind of looks like this line is really sliding across the screen and being drawn on. And then what I'm doing now is at the end of the animation, after it slides on screen, we have the shot glass flip up. And so what I'm doing is I am changing the path of our B-spline over time. And so as the shot glass is going to slide across this thing, I want the tail end of the spline to kind of whip up at the last second. And when you use this bit mapping node tree, that's what that ends up looking like. So you get this motion blur combination with the bitmap. And so now I'm just playing it back to see how it looks with the timings. But let's go ahead and hop into DaVinci in real time real quick, and I can show you what that node tree looks like. All right, so now we are in our fusion composition of the shot glass table slide animation guide. So the actual table slide animation is these 5 nodes right here, or 6, haha, 6 nodes. These 3 I got from Peach's video. It's a B-spline node and 2 bitmap nodes. The B-spline node is similar to a polygon node, but it's going to follow a rule of splines. So when you go about creating them, you can see on screen right here, I drew this by making 4 straight lines, and then what the B-spline node does is interpolate a path between those nodes. That's a smooth path. So that's what the B-spline node is. The way you set it up is actually pretty straightforward. There's 2 key settings that he points out. One is just animating the position over time. So if you look at our position property, you can see that it is just sliding from left to right. So that's pretty straightforward. The length and center and all this kind of stuff, I think you can kind of personalize to what you want to do. But the big thing that he does, is in his settings option, he does some pretty crazy stuff with the motion blur. So he maxes out the quality, the shutter angle is set to 1400 degrees, which is kind of wild. And then he's got a little spread in going on here. So these were, I think, the key settings to make this work. And what a bitmap node is, in essence, and from my understanding, is it's used to convert images and videos to maskable things. So if you had, for instance, a video that was in full color and you wanted to convert it to a mask, what a bitmap node will do will change it to purely black and white channels. And then when you play with the threshold and by messing with the different settings in here, you can play around with how your mask has ended up being generated. It'd probably be better to watch like a full tutorial on what like bit mapping is, but essentially what the effect of this does is it will take our spline animation here and it's going to blur it out so that instead of having this kind of fanned out faint object, we make it more binary. So we either have yes blurred or no. And then we apply another bitmap node to turn the edges of this one to solid white edges. So you get that like broad brushstroke look instead of like a motion blurred transparent look. I would watch Peach's video to get a better understanding of how this works and how you apply it. But in essence, you do the B-spline node and then 2 bitmap nodes. And then what I did after that is I used an erode dilate node because originally when I look at this line, it is a chunky boy. So I thin it out using an erode dilate node and just bring in the borders in. And then I had a transform node here just in case I wanted to reposition this or make it bigger or smaller. But I only ended up making it just a tad bit bigger. And then we feed that into our background node for the color. You could really feed this into anything, but the background node is nice because like if I wanted to, I could make it a different color or gradient or whatever. So yeah, that was in essence the table path node breakdown. All right, so I ended up going back and forth a little bit with kind of fine tuning the table animation, but the next step was to animate the shot glass sliding on it. And one of the things that I struggled with, and I don't know if anybody else out there has a better solution, is that I really wanted to just link the path of my B-spline to the path that the shot glass is able to slide on. Because when you mess with like the center property of any of your nodes, like a transform node or even your media node, there's a way to link it to a path. And so what I had originally wanted to do was just link the 2 paths, and I was like, this will be super easy. Once I animate the path once, even if I change it down the road, like I can just link it to the shot glass and then it changes it for both. But I had a really difficult time doing that, so I ended up hand animating the shot glass path, and the animation process I think is pretty straightforward. The only things I changed over time were its position, going left to right. And what I'm doing right now is I'm kind of fine-tuning that position and the speed that it's going across the line in the spline window. So trying to give it, make it feel, like it's sliding into the trough and then slowing down at the peak and then kind of accelerating towards the bottom. So that's what I'm doing. And then the other thing that I did is I end up animating the shot glass angle very slightly so that it feels like, it's kind of tipping left and right. It's not something that's very pronounced, but I think it just adds into the final look and effect of the shot glass. And once we do that, we go into it actually launching in air. And if we skip forward just a little bit, what I'm trying to do right now is make this like in-flight animation. In the first version of me editing this graphic, what I thought might be cool is to have the shot glass fly up and then almost like fly past these different collages and montages of things that are related to the podcast. Almost like, we're flying through the clouds and the different levels of the atmosphere, and on the way up, we pass through these different things. So I spent a good amount of time trying to figure out how to make like this 2D PNG wobble just for me to not use it. And shout out to Slim. If he's watching this, I sent it to him and I was like, what do you think? And he's like, it's good. Like, it looks good, but it's just kind of weird because it ends up looking like you just have a shot glass in the middle of the screen and it doesn't really look like you're actually soaring past anything. I was like, all right. So what we end up doing is I have it flip off of the end, and let me see if I can't scrub forward to where I do that. All right, I lied. I scrubbed forward, and I think that was one of those parts where my computer blue screen. So I don't have me actually walking through the angle flip, but this ends up being that final node tree that we have for the shot glass flying on screen. And you can see when I select everything, we got a bunch of lines and stuff going on. One of the issues that I ended up having with this particular section is that I ended up transforming this shot glass and creating my own path for it to follow. I had said I wanted to link the spline tool, and when I didn't do that, I ended up making a path. And one of the problems that I had when I did the path is that for some reason DaVinci didn't end up caching the path properly every time I opened up DaVinci, so I would have to redraw the path and it moving across the path each time. So when I start to scrub through some of these things, if all of a sudden like the shot glass goes transparent, that's what I'm talking about. It's like, it's this weird thing where it can't figure out where the shot glass is on the path. And so it's like, I don't know, it's just kind of weird. So yeah, we start with the actual PNG itself. And then let me zoom in on our nodes here. We have our resize node, and this is not a resize node. This is a transform node that I named resize. There actually is a resize node, so that was poor nomenclature on my part. So shrink it down, and then this is what the resize node is actually meant for. I have a bad habit of just using a merge node and a background node to format things. So I have it. I use the background node here to format it back to 4K. That's what the resize node is. That's what I should do, but I don't. And then I have a series of transform nodes to have it animate flying up and off screen. And this is where my lack of expertise comes in, because I don't know what the most efficient working system is for doing this. But what I've heard is that it's often better to separate each motion that you want to animate into its own transform node. So that's what I did. So the first one we have here is what I called spinning angles, and it's a transform node. And what this does is this begins this like distortion effect of our shot glass. Because originally what I wanted to do, like I mentioned, is I wanted it to wobble in the air. And so what I ended up doing, you kind of see it's kind of distorting in space, is I end up adding a the other transform, not the one you're used to. I add not the XF one, the non-labeled one, just transform. And I added a perturb modifier to both the rotation angle and the pitch. I think, yeah. So if I go over my modifiers, it's the shake. Excuse me. Same thing. I added a shake modifier to the rotation and the pitch. But I don't even remember if this ends up getting used. This is the one that I was trying to describe, and I call it the good old rail angle, because this is what I use to tilt the shot glass as it's sliding over the path. The one thing I want to point out here is that our pivot angle I change. So I have it down here on the bottom as it's sliding across the rail to kind of give it that top heavy feel. And then as we tilt it, so this is it going at the back end, we tilt it up and have it flip across. I bring my pivot angle up along with it. So that way the top part of, or the bottom part of our shot glass is now swinging down here. So that was the one sneaky thing I did to kind of give it a little more weighty feel to it, messing with the pivot and the rotation. And then this is the node I had nightmares dealing with, this rail position node. So what I did, like I said, is I made this path and I linked it to my center position. So that would be modify with and then XY path. That's one of those things that you can do. I think it's that one, right? Yeah, path. And so I made this path, and you can see here at the back end, this is what I'm talking about. It lost track of where its position was on this path. So I don't know what the workaround to this is, because it worked great when I set it up the first time, but anytime I went back to use it, I just ended up having a lot of problems. So there's not a happy solution to this. It's just I guess a cautious warning. And then I have this final transform node here that I use to bring our shot glass up into the air. So after it hits the end of our ramp right here, we use this transform node to flip it up and off frame. Just like that. So we use that to slide off frame. We keep it in air through the montage sequence, and then we have it slowly slide down and slam into place like that. This flying side to side one, I think, yeah, this was this is what I used when I had originally tried to keep it floating on screen. I don't use, and then we use the bitmap modifier here to give it that same effect that that we had described with Peach. The kind of like giving it a brushstroke effect instead of the more like camera looking motion blur. So yeah, so in essence, all this shot glass animation was just a bunch of transform nodes. The trick was to the trick was really just getting the splines to look right and the motion to look right. I'm not a motion expert, so when it came to doing all of this stuff, like, this was all new to me and trying to figure out how to make it work smoothly. So it was just a lot of me smoothing out splines and kind of having some back and forth. All right, so that was the cup flip. How y'all doing out there? It's a lot of me talking about lines and cup flipping and transform nodes and all that kind of stuff. If you made it this far and the motion graphic stuff and me explaining it in this way is useful, yeah, again, just let me know if you feel like it would be a better way for me to maybe do some of these unedited edits. Let me know. Like, I'll obviously continue to try to do more specific tutorials, but I really try to gear these unedited edits videos to like more applicable videos and things that would be really hard to break down into, like one specific subject matter. It's kind of just like an introduction to like, oh, that's how you would do that kind of a thing. So the next step that I'm doing right now is the logo animation. And what this entailed is at the end of the montage sequence in the intro, the shot glass slides and falls back onto frame, impacts, hits the ground, and when it hits the ground, you can see I have two lines that are flying into the shot glass, and those lines I animated the exact same way that I did the table slide animation. As soon as the shot glass falls and hits the ground, I have these lines animate from underneath it and flow out from the sides and into the cup. And then what I end up doing is I mask the word "the" that is inside the shot glass over the top of those lines to make it feel like the glass is filling up when the lines hit that. And so now what I'm doing is I'm laying out the words to animate on screen. And what I could have actually done here, because I have the font that was used in the original logo, is I could have actually done some text plus nodes. And do I end up switching to text plus nodes? I can't remember if I do, but I realize it now, like after I'd split it up, I was like, oh, Brandon, you could have just done text plus nodes instead of exporting PNGs. But, I'm not the sharpest crayon in the box. And I'm going to keep the logo animation pretty simple for this part of it. We don't need to get overly flashy. I just want like a smooth way for the words to appear on screen after the shot glass comes back and lands and impacts and all that kind of stuff. So what I'm going to end up doing is I brought in the full mark that had the final logo build on it, and then I brought in the logo build. It sounds like a weapon loadout. The full logo build, and then I bring in the individual PNGs, and then I laid the original PNGs over the top of the full built out word and mark, so that way I knew the final positions of everything. And then with everything separated and laid out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to animate each of the individual aspects individually. So the first one, like I said, is the word "the," and I keyframe a rectangle sliding over it just to just a simple mass transition to make it look like the word "the" is filling up when the lines slide into it. And then I think I do something very similar with both around and bar. I think I have around slide from left to right and come into frame behind a masking rectangle. And then I think I have the word bar slide down from beneath it. And then the word podcast swing out from underneath the word bar. It's just like one continual motion of the words building up on top of each other. And let me go ahead and hop into DaVinci real quick to show what that looks like. All right, so here we go. This is the back half of our composition. We went over the logo flip, the table animation. This is the two drink lines that I had mentioned, with the lines coming out and displaying on screen like this. Same thing, same exact principle and build out, B-spline, bitmaps, all that good stuff. This is our logo. So I have our full logo mark here, and then this is what I had set to be a little bit transparent to make sure I was lining everything up correctly. And by hitting Control P, you have Fusion pass through that node, so it's no longer displayed. It's basically disabling it. And then in here, we have the word "the" set up. There's no animation on the transform node. The only thing that's animating here is our rectangle node sliding up to reveal it. The next thing would be, what is this? This is the word bar. So again, I don't think, do I animate this at all? I don't think I do. I think, yeah. Bar, same concept. I have a rectangle slide from left to right to reveal it. The only one that was kind of tricky was this podcast word, because what I had originally wanted to do was have it swing down, right? I wanted it to be like an old saloon side, you know, like kind of swing down on the frame. And when I had tried doing that with like the 2D transform node, it just did not look right. So what I ended up having to do is creating a 3D plane with it, and then setting the pivot point of the 3D plane to be the top of this word right here. So that's all in this image 3D plane. I changed the pivot point, and then we animate the rotation like this. If somebody does know how to do this 3D rotation better, please let me know, but that's how I ended up having to do it. And then that's how we get that. And then the last one is this word around. And I think I actually use a text node. Yeah. So this is the one that I ended up converting the PNG, or I changed the PNG to a text plus node. And then I used the actual font that was in the brand guidelines. And then I did some text animation in here. And the text animation is just a follower node where we have the letters change in opacity and size and rotation and come into frame. All right, and after that point, this is when some of the blue screen stuff started to become an issue, because, you know, I was having issues with the shot glass rendering, and then I was trying to do some things with the graphic effects, and my computer it was not handling it. So after we did the shot glass animation, the next step was to create some visuals for this like title sequence. And I had the music already mapped out, so I kind of knew how long I wanted things to go. And then this is where that time I spent to find some inspiration comes into play. I start with a hyperlapse of photos from Hitch and his past and some of the things that he's done and highlights. And this is like a recent trend that's been going on in like the short form world. You know, people will go to festivals and then they'll take a picture of the same object in multiple locations. And then when you stitch them together, you get this feeling like you're being transported between place and time, because the object stays in one place, but everything else changes. It looks like I'm doing some color correction here for whatever reason. But that's what that ended up looking like. And then we transition into this sequence where it's like a callback to the Around the Bar history, because Hitch has been producing and doing this podcast on his own for a long time, with a greater vision of making it like a fully fleshed out show, which he's now doing. So originally what I wanted to do was I wanted this montage kind of introducing the guest and like keeping the theme and the fun feeling of Around the Bar, and then kind of continue that feeling into an animation of somebody pouring a drink. I mean, you know, like it just kind of transitioning into that Around the Bar feeling. And I think I was able to do that. I'm not 100% sure, but from this point on, what ends up happening is I have a lot of back and forth going between IRL clips and then shots where I'm like, should I try to make this on my own? So what I'm doing right now is thinking. I'm doing some thinking right now because nothing is moving, and I'm trying to figure out what to end up doing, or what I'm supposed to be doing. So let me go ahead and hop into the actual project one last time and show you how I went finishing out this intro. All right, so here we are. This is the final intro timeline. We have our track that we've talked about a few times here. You know, the old music track that we're using to sync things up. I have my timestamps here that I use for figuring out where sections should be. So this first section right here is this hyperlapse montage that I was describing, and then we have this next bit right here, and this is that like grungy shot glass thing, and then we move into this final section here with some of the IRL shots. I currently have the fusion and color effects off right now. So if I turn that back on. So this is that picture sequence that I was talking about. And I'm probably going to struggle to play it while I'm recording right now, but I'll just go ahead and scrub through it. And what this ends up looking like is a bunch of images of Hitch. And if you notice, I try to keep his face in the exact same spot through all of this. So we have this this quick whip transition to the pictures, and then we start once the transition ends with keeping Hitch's face in this upper center third. So as we move along, we try to keep it there, keep it there, keep it there, bop, 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 all throughout until the very end, where we have two shots that hang on a little bit longer. So if we look at the timeline down here, we hang on these final two shots with Hitch and TST celebrating on stage to kind of leave that as the final impression. For the background of this, I use this stock media film file. This was, I think I pulled from Envato Elements. I'm pretty sure I pulled it from Envato. Yeah, I was just browsing through. Again, this is part of that like inspiration, mood boarding, doing some figuring out, research part of it. I was just trying to find some things that I felt were fit what I was going for. And I found this and I was like, yeah, this is really cool. Let's use it. So we actually have two giant adjustment clips. This is where I have all the effects. I've got this one little line right here that's got all the effects that I need. And the reason I do this on an adjustment clip instead of applying these fusion effects to the individual photos is because all I have to do is stretch the adjustment clip as long as I want to apply these effects to it. So let me go ahead and hop back into the adjustment clip real quick. It's pretty straightforward. So the only node that you might not have is this gradient node, and the gradient group node that I have right here, it's from Peach. I like the man's work. Sue me. I like it a lot. There is another gradient map node that I have here. I don't remember if this is something that's in DaVinci by itself or if it's something I've downloaded over time, but a gradient map essentially just maps a set of colors based off of the brightness of the image to those colors. So what I did with the gradient map node is I have it change the image colors, and I actually attached to that, I have a color corrector node. And what I do with this color corrector node is I have a perturb modifier attached to the hue. And what that does is it changes the color over time. So if I scrub through this image, you can see it slowly changing colors. And you don't have to attach that if you don't want to, but it's just something that kind of, I don't know, makes it look cool. We have a little chromatic aberration that adds those like red and blue tracing to the outside of your images. And then we have a half tone node. I'm using the one that Peach has made, but you can make your own half tone node setup. It's really easy to do. I'll link a tutorial here that can show you how to do it. I didn't bother saving my own, but yeah, that's how you get these dots that appear on the image. And then the last thing that I really do is I add a stop motion node. And a stop motion node gives it that like 12 frame per second feel, where it's like slowly animating over time, into the Spider-Verse type of feel. So that's all that is, and that's how you get the like images to kind of just like snap on screen over time, kind of a deal. So that is that. And then for the second part of the animation, we have the shot glass slide on screen and get filled up with some liquor. And I think all I do is I apply the same effect to the shot glass node. Yeah, it's the exact same build out. The only thing that I do differently is I have to mask out the shot glass video that I have first. So that's what I do here. We mask that out and we create an all white instance of it by just feeding that mask into a background node. And then I use a displace node to give it like a fuzzy outline. We have a transform node to animate it sliding in off screen. And then this is the same node build out that we were just talking about. We got a gradient node, halftone, stop motion. So again, masked out the shot glass, made it black and white, and then we applied our gradient node and the halftone node, and we have it slide in off screen. And then underneath it, we have the videos that I used from Hitches Past, along with, I believe, something that desaturated it. And then the last part of this intro was some IRL shots. I don't think there's a whole lot to talk about here. I just really wanted to feel like there was a lot of motion in this sequence. So I tried to pick shots where things were being popped or poured or slid or moved. So that's what this looks like. The grabbing, pouring, can open, this can open sequence. I apply a mask to his arms. So as the arms pull away off screen, the next image displays underneath it. And then you can see our shot glass right here, flying back into frame. Sorry, I'm running OBS right now, so my computer is humming. And then, yeah, the shot glass lands and we have our logo animation. There you go. And that was the Around the Bar intro. If you found this useful, please let me know. I appreciate you guys if you stuck around to watch it all the way through, and I will catch y'all next time. Peace.